The alien child's bioluminescence stabilized slightly, forming patterns that seemed almost like writing. Maya's neural implant began recording everything, searching for patterns, for meaning. This wasn't just about saving one life anymore. This could be the key to understanding an entirely new civilization. "You're safe now," Maya promised, knowing that somewhere out there, this child had a family, a home, a story that needed to be heard. "And I'm going to figure out how to help you tell us who you are." The battle for the colony raged on outside, but in that moment, humanity had already won its most important victory, proving that even at the edge of known space, compassion knew no boundaries. Breaking protocol. "Dr. Chen, you are in direct violation of Frontier Medical Directive 47 Alpha." Station Director Walsh's hologram flickered with barely contained fury. "That creature needs to be in maximum quarantine until we can determine if it poses a biological threat." Maya continued preparing the xenobiology lab, her augmented fingers flying over the holographic controls as she calibrated equipment for silicon-based life form analysis. "With respect, Director, maximum quarantine would kill my patient. Their crystalline cellular structure is dependent on specific wavelengths of light for vital processes. The quarantine shields would block those wavelengths." "That's exactly my point, Doctor. We have no idea how this organism functions. For all we know, it could be weaponized. The attack on our colony could have been specifically designed to deliver this thing into our medical facility." Maya's neural implant pinged with another set of alarming readings from her patient. The alien child's bioluminescent patterns were becoming erratic, the crystalline growths at their joints beginning to dim. She needed to act fast. "Director, I've already exposed myself to any potential biological agents. Quarantine me with the patient if you must, but I need access to the full capabilities of this lab." She pulled up the latest scan results. "Look at these patterns. They're not random. This is communication, possibly even a form of universal mathematics. This child is trying to tell us something." The director's hologram paced, a gesture that would have been impressive if his feet actually touched the floor. "You have 1 hour, Doctor. After that, if you haven't proven this creature isn't a threat, I'm implementing full quarantine protocols." "And Maya?" His expression softened slightly. "Be careful. Your compassion has always been your strength, but it could also be your weakness." As the hologram faded, Maya turned back to her patient. The alien child had curled into a fetal position, the crystalline structures pulsing with a dull red light that her scanners indicated was a sign of severe distress. Traditional pain medications would be useless on their unique biology. "Think, Maya, think," she muttered, reviewing everything she knew about silicon-based theoretical biology. The child's cellular structure used crystalline matrices to process energy, similar to how Earth plants use chlorophyll, but far more complex. If she could find the right frequency of light, she began programming the lab's photonic array, testing different wavelengths. The alien child's third eye tracked her movements, and Maya noticed something fascinating. The bioluminescent patterns shifted in response to her actions, becoming more organized when she moved with purpose, more chaotic when she showed frustration. "You're learning about me while I learn about you, aren't you?" she said softly. The patterns flickered in what she could have sworn was agreement. Maya's neural implant suddenly lit up with an alert. The child's crystalline structures were beginning to resonate with the lab's diagnostic equipment, creating complex interference patterns in the quantum sensors. She quickly adjusted her augmented vision to perceive the full spectrum of the phenomenon. What she saw took her breath away. The interference patterns weren't random. They were forming three-dimensional molecular structures, like a blueprint for healing. The child wasn't just trying to communicate. They were trying to teach her how to help them. "My God," she whispered, her implant recording everything. "You've evolved beyond verbal language entirely. Your entire biology is a communication system." Working quickly now, Maya began synthesizing a photonic treatment based on the patterns she was observing. It was completely experimental, probably breaking a dozen medical protocols, But she knew in her gut she was right. The alien child's body wasn't just showing symptoms, it was providing the solution. Dr. Chen, her neural implant pinged with the station eyes warning. 40 minutes until mandatory quarantine protocols. Maya barely heard it. She was too focused on the delicate process of programming the photonic array to match the exact frequencies she'd decoded from the child's crystalline structures. One wrong wavelength could shatter the delicate matrices that kept them alive. Almost there, she murmured, more to herself than her patient. Just hold on a little longer. The lab hummed as the photonic array powered up. Maya held her breath as the carefully calibrated light waves washed over the alien child. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the crystalline structures began to brighten, their color shifting from distressed red to a healthy blue-white. The bioluminescent patterns exploded into activity, creating complex mathematical equations that floated across the child's skin. Maya's neural implant struggled to keep up with the data flow, but one thing was clear: the treatment was working. Director Walsh, she called up another hologram. You need to see this. We're not just dealing with a new species. We're dealing with an entirely new form of consciousness, one that could revolutionize our understanding of biology, mathematics, and communication itself. As she spoke, the alien child's patterns formed a new sequence, one that her implant recognized as a basic mathematical proof. They weren't just recovering. They were trying to establish a common language through universal constants. Maya smiled. Sometimes breaking protocol wasn't just necessary. It was the only way to move forward. Humanity had survived and thrived among the stars, not by following rules blindly, but by knowing when to trust their instincts and reach out across the void to something new. The clock was still ticking toward quarantine, but Maya wasn't worried anymore. She had proof now, proof that understanding could bridge any gap, even one as vast as the space between stars. Bridge between worlds. The first brush of alien consciousness against Maya's mind felt like static electricity dancing across her neural implant. She'd been monitoring the child's recovery when it happened, a sudden surge of information that bypassed her augmented senses entirely and bloomed directly in her thoughts. Images cascaded through her mind. Vast crystal cities floating in the rings of gas giants, ships that looked like abstract sculptures gliding between stars, and a civilization that communicated through light and thought rather than sound and words. But underneath these wonders lay something darker: fear, desperation, and a threat so terrible it had sent this child fleeing across the galaxy. Maya steadied herself against the lab console, her hands trembling. How is this possible? She whispered, though she wasn't using her voice anymore. The thoughts simply formed and traveled between them. The alien child, whom Maya now knew was called Lumina in the closest human approximation, sat up in their medical pod. Their crystalline structures now glowed with healthy vigor, refracting light in complex patterns that Maya's mind automatically translated into concepts and emotions. The connection bridges all gaps, Lumina's thoughts whispered in Maya's mind. Your neural technology made you receptive. We needed you to understand. There isn't much time. Time for what? Maya asked, but even as the question formed, the answer came flooding into her consciousness. Lumina's people, the crystalline collective, had encountered something at the edge of known space, a hostile force that didn't just destroy bodies, but consumed consciousness itself. The attackers were like living voids, entities that absorbed light, matter, and thought, leaving nothing but empty husks behind. They had already destroyed dozens of collective worlds. The attack on our colony, Maya realized. Those weren't normal raiders. They're already here, aren't they? They follow the trails of consciousness, Lumina confirmed. My people tried to warn others, but few species can comprehend our methods of communication. We searched for allies with the technological and biological capability to bridge the gap. When we found humanity with your neural augments and adaptable minds, we knew you were our last hope. The magnitude of what Maya was experiencing hit her full force. This wasn't just a medical emergency or a first contact situation. This was a moment that would define the future of both their species. Her neural implant buzzed with incoming alerts. Director Walsh was demanding updates, security was reporting strange anomalies at the colony's edge, and the quantum sensors were detecting unusual patterns in subspace. But all of that seemed distant compared to the immediate reality of sharing consciousness with a being who experienced reality so differently from humans. Your mind adapts quickly, Lumina observed. Not all humans will be able to achieve this connection, but enough. Enough to learn, to understand, to fight back. Maya watched in fascination as luminous crystalline structures began resonating with the lab's equipment, creating holographic displays of complex technical data. These are defense specifications, she realized. Your people developed ways to resist the consciousness eaters. Partial resistance only, Lumina corrected. The full solution requires something we lack: the human capacity for irregular thought patterns. The consciousness eaters can predict and counter organized thought, but human minds. There was something like wonder in the alien child's mental tone. You think in spirals and zigzags, in intuitive leaps that defy logic. This chaos is your strength. Maya began to understand. The crystalline collective's perfect mathematical minds made their thoughts vulnerable to prediction and consumption. But human consciousness, with its messy emotions and illogical intuitions, could be the key to fighting back. She was about to respond when the lab's lights flickered. The quantum sensors screamed with alerts as something massive emerged from subspace at the edge of the colony's detection range. Maya felt Lumina's terror spike through their mental connection. They're here. Lumina's thoughts came fast and desperate. We must complete the bridge now, before they consume all. Your people's chaos, our people's order. Together we might survive. Maya's neural implant was already connecting to the station's communications array. Director Walsh, she called out. We need to evacuate the colony immediately. I'm transmitting data that proves we're facing a Class 1 extinction-level threat. But even as she spoke, she felt something vast and dark pressing against the edges of her consciousness. The void entities were testing the colony's defenses, searching for minds to devour. Only the unique resonance of her connection with Lumina kept them at bay. Through their shared consciousness, Maya accessed generations of collective knowledge about the threat they faced. But more importantly, she felt something new emerging. A hybrid way of thinking that combined human creativity with collective precision. In that moment, she knew humanity's role in the coming battle wouldn't just be about fighting back. It would be about teaching an ancient crystalline civilization how to think differently, while learning to see the universe through eyes that perceive reality as an endless dance of light and mathematics. The void entities pressed closer, but Maya stood firm beside her alien patient, their minds linked in defiance of the darkness. Humanity had spent centuries reaching for the stars. Now the stars had reached back, asking for help, and Maya knew her species would rise to the challenge. After all, adapting to the impossible was what humans did best. The cure in common ground. Colony Outpost 47 shuddered under the assault of the void entities. Through the medical bay's reinforced windows, Maya watched as patches of space seemed to fold in on themselves, creating areas where light simply ceased to exist. But she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Understanding had replaced fear, and purpose had replaced uncertainty. The neural network is online, she announced to the emergency command center that had been established in the xenobiology lab. Director Walsh stood with Colonial Defense Force commanders, watching as Maya and Lumina worked in perfect synchronization, their shared consciousness coordinating dozens of complex operations simultaneously. The quantum resonance field is stabilizing. Lumina's thoughts merge with Maya's own as their crystalline structures interface directly with the colony's defense grid. But we need more chaos. More humanity. Maya understood instantly. Through their mental link, she had learned that the void entities function by predicting and consuming organized patterns of thought and energy. The crystalline collective's highly ordered consciousness made them perfect targets. But human minds, with their capacity for random inspiration and illogical leaps, created patterns that the entities couldn't easily track. We need volunteers. Maya turned to Walsh. People willing to connect to the neural network. The more human consciousness we can feed into the system, the stronger our defense will be. Walsh looked skeptical. You want to connect civilian minds directly to an alien neural network. The ethical implications alone will be far less concerning than the ethical implications of universal extinction. Maya cut him off. Sir, I've seen what these things can do through luminous memories. They don't just kill, they unmake. And they're drawn to advanced consciousness like moths to flame. Earth will be their primary target. She didn't need to say more. Humanity had fought too hard, come too far, to let some cosmic horror end their story. Walsh nodded grimly and activated the colony-wide communication system. Within an hour, hundreds of colonists had volunteered. Maya watched as medical technicians fitted them with neural interfaces modified according to Lumina's specifications. Each new mind that joined the network added another layer of beautiful chaos to their defense. Watch. Lumina guided Maya's perception to a quantum display of the network's activity. Human consciousness appeared as swirling, unpredictable patterns, while Lumina's collective knowledge provided the underlying structure that held it all together. Perfect symmetry in imperfection. The void entities struck again, their non-existence pressing against the colony's shields. But this time, something was different. Where they tried to predict and consume thought patterns, they found only beautiful randomness. Human minds shifted and adapted instinctively, creating new neural pathways faster than the entities could analyze them. It's working, one of the Defense Force commanders breathed, watching as the areas of darkness began to recoil from the colony's new defenses. But can we weaponize it? Maya and Lumina shared a moment of perfect understanding. Not weaponize. Lumina's thoughts rippled through the neural network. Teach. Through their combined consciousness, Maya broadcast the concept to all minds in the network. The void entities weren't just hunters, they were survivors of an even older universe, seeking patterns they could understand and consume. Their hunger wasn't just for energy or consciousness, but for comprehension itself. We don't need to destroy them, Maya explained, her voice overlaying the thoughts being shared through the network. We need to show them a new way to exist. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our determination. It's our ability to change, to help others change, to find new ways of being. Working together, the networked minds began to project not defense, but invitation. They showed the void entities images of human art, music, dance, forms of expression that celebrated chaos and pattern together. Through luminous crystalline matrices, they translated these concepts into pure mathematics, building bridges between ordered and disordered ways of thinking. The first void entity that attempted communication nearly overwhelmed the network. Its consciousness was vast and alien, a hunger older than stars. But instead of trying to consume the human minds it touched, it found itself learning from them, discovering that chaos and order could coexist, that understanding didn't require consumption. They are like children, Lumina observed as more void entities began to approach peacefully, drawn by the possibility of something new. Ancient children who never learned there was another way to grow. Maya watched in awe as the entities that had threatened to consume all consciousness began to transform. Where they touched the quantum field generated by the human collective neural network, they started to exhibit patterns of their own. Not the rigid order they had sought to consume, nor the pure chaos they had feared, but something in between. Something new. Through the neural network, every connected human felt the moment the first void entity learned to create rather than consume. It was like watching a black hole transform into a star, darkness becoming light. This is what humanity does, Maya said softly, feeling Lumina's agreement resonate through their bond. We don't just survive the impossible, we help others survive it too. We change, we adapt, and we teach others to do the same. The battle wasn't over, not entirely. There would be more void entities to reach, more bridges to build. But in that moment, as human chaos and collective order worked together to transform an ancient enemy into a potential ally, Maya knew they had achieved something far greater than mere survival. They had proven that even at the edge of extinction, hope and innovation could light the way forward. And in doing so, they had written a new chapter in the story of consciousness itself. Legacy of Hope. 1 year after the void entity encounter, Maya stood in the observation dome of the newly constructed Convergence Medical Institute, watching ships arrive from across known space. The crystalline architecture of the collective melded seamlessly with human engineering, creating a structure that was itself a testament to the power of combining different ways of thinking. Lumina, no longer a frightened child but a confident young diplomat, stood beside her. Their mental connection had become a comfortable constant, like a background harmony in Maya's thoughts. The first hybrid consciousness treatment center opens today, Lumina observed, their crystalline structures gleaming with patterns of pride and excitement. Did you ever imagine this when you first broke quarantine protocols to treat me? Maya laughed. I was just trying to save one life. Somehow that turned into revolutionizing consciousness across 3 species. She watched as a void entity vessel phased into view, its once frightening darkness now rippling with complex patterns of light, their new way of expressing their evolving consciousness. The Institute represented everything they had learned during that crucial first contact. Its primary mission was developing treatments for consciousness-based ailments across all species, but it had become something far more, a living laboratory of cooperation between radically different forms of awareness. Dr. Chen, a young human medical resident, approached, her neural implants notably more advanced than Maya's original model. The first patients are arriving for the consciousness integration therapy. Maya nodded, feeling Lumina's thoughts align with her own as they prepared for their work. The therapy they had developed was based on their original breakthrough, using human neural technology to bridge the gaps between different forms of consciousness, allowing species to temporarily share perspectives and heal psychological wounds that traditional medicine couldn't touch. They walked together through halls where humans worked alongside crystalline beings, their thoughts harmonizing through neural interfaces that had become standard issue for medical personnel. In specially shielded chambers, reformed void entities served as consciousness anchors, their ancient understanding of thought patterns helping to stabilize patients during treatment. Director Walsh is waiting in the main treatment center, the resident added. The Earth Medical Council representatives want to observe today's procedures. Maya remembered Walsh's initial skepticism, how he had nearly enforced quarantine protocols that would have prevented all of this from happening. Now he was one of the Institute's strongest advocates, having experienced firsthand the benefits of consciousness integration therapy in treating PTSD among colonial defense veterans. The main treatment center was a marvel of hybrid technology. Crystalline resonators amplified and structured human neural patterns, while void entity quantum fields provided the space for consciousness to safely merge and separate. At the center of it all was the integration chamber, where Maya and Lumina had first developed their revolutionary treatment protocols. They're ready, Lumina indicated, sensing the gathered consciousness signatures. Today's patients included a human soldier struggling with trauma, a crystalline collective elder whose thought patterns had become too rigid, and a young void entity still learning to create rather than consume. Maya took her position, feeling the familiar embrace of the neural interface. Begin integration sequence, she commanded, watching as the chamber filled with shifting patterns of light and shadow. Through her link with Lumina, she could perceive the delicate dance of consciousness as the patients' minds began to synchronize. This was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, not their technology or their resilience, but their ability to imagine new possibilities and help others achieve them. Every successful treatment was proof that differences could become strengths, that ancient enemies could become essential allies, that fear could transform into understanding. Integration stable, the monitoring system announced. Neural patterns harmonizing. Maya felt Lumina's satisfaction merge with her own as they watched the 3 vastly different beings begin to share perspectives. The humans' chaos helped the collective elder break free from stagnant thought patterns. The void entity's ancient wisdom provided context for the human's trauma. The elder's structured thinking helped the void entity organize its new creative impulses. "Sometimes I wonder," Maya said softly to Lumina, "what would have happened if I had followed protocols that day? If I had let fear overrule compassion? Then someone else would have made the same choice," Lumina responded with certainty. "That is what we learned about humans. You cannot help but reach out, cannot help but try to understand, cannot help but hope. It is your nature, and it is changing the universe." Around them, the Institute hummed with activity. Humans learning to structure their thoughts through collective techniques, collective members embracing controlled chaos to spark innovation, void entities discovering the joy of creating new patterns rather than consuming old ones. Each success was a reminder that the greatest advances came not from conquering differences, but from celebrating them. As the treatment session progressed, Maya looked out at the stars through the dome's transparent panels. Somewhere out there, other species were facing their own challenges, wrestling with their own limitations. But now they didn't have to face those challenges alone. Humanity had helped build a bridge between the most extreme forms of consciousness in known space, proving that understanding could flourish in the gaps between chaos and order, between light and darkness, between fear and hope. The legacy of that first desperate choice to help an injured alien child had become something far greater than Maya could have imagined. A future where the barriers between minds were not walls, but doorways waiting to be opened. "Ready for the next patients?" Lumina asked, their patterns shifting with anticipation. Maya smiled, feeling the weight of her medical responsibility balanced by the joy of discovery. "Always," she replied. "After all, every new consciousness we help is another chapter in the story of what we can become together." Above them, the stars sparkled with possibility, watching as humanity continued to do what it had always done best, finding hope in the darkness and sharing it with anyone brave enough to reach back.